In life, uh, I realized that don't allow anyone to tell you what you want to do. Do
Right.
what you want to do. We've always looked at sports persons as gold, silver, bronze, fourth, or fail.
Correct.
But what is the journey of the athlete to that point? I remember a line he told me. He said, "Bhuka share सबसे ज़्यादा dangerous होता है." How many schools have playgrounds in India? It won't happen, Vasant, till it becomes a movement. You can you can lose in the first round at the Olympics. So sport teaches you humility, and that's one life lesson which I always take on board. Uh, Wake up in the morning, go to work or whatever you're doing, give it your best. If you don't win, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's a new day next day. You start again.
In this upcoming episode, I chanced upon interviewing one of India's premier sports journalists, Mr. Digvijay Singh Deo. Mr. Deo has covered multiple prestigious sporting tournaments such as the Olympics, the Asian Games, and the Commonwealth Games. He's also an author, having co authored the book My Olympic Journey, which chronicles the struggles of 50 of India's finest Olympians. This interview with him serves to be a treasure trove of sporting trivia thanks to Mr. Deo's countless anecdotes and references. I hope that it serves to awaken us as a nation to our vast potential beyond just cricket. Thank you. Keep watching What's Up with Vasant. Hello and welcome to What's Up with Vasant. We have one of India's premier Olympic sports covering journalists, Mr. Digvijay Singh Deo. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you. I'm good. It's a huge time difference. You're over in the other side of the world. It's
Yeah.
nice and cold out here, morning here in New Delhi. So, looking forward to this chat.
That's awesome. I have so much to ask you, but I want to dive a bit into your childhood because I know that in one of your interviews you had mentioned about late Mrs. Inderjeet Khurana from the
Hmm.
Ruchika School in Bhubaneswar. Uh, can you tell us a bit about how your journey started and how you got introduced to Olympics?
Well, it's a huge story that it's something I really treasure. And as a young child growing up in Bhubaneswar, let's not forget Bhubaneswar back in the 80s was sort of back of beyond. It wasn't what it is now. One too many schools at the moment, English medium schools. If you were around, you wanted to study in the convent. There was the Stuart School, and that was about it. So I was in Ruchika. A lot of my elder cousins were there as well. So
Right.
you know how it is in families. If the elders go there, that's where you go. And I remember 1988 was the Seoul Olympics, and Mrs. Khurana said in the assembly that, listen, I know we tell you always to study, but the Olympics are starting. Please go and watch it. And that sort of stayed with me. My memories of that first Olympics I saw on TV. I've written in my book, sort of Ben Johnson getting disqualified. Sort of Matt Biondi was somebody who I never knew, but I saw him winning those gold medals. Sort of became the first icon you had. You aspire to be someone like that, and then you also remember certain incidents at those games, which many years later, Greg Louganis, the American diver, doing the flip, hitting his head on the back of the diving platform, and then still going on and winning the gold. Those things sort of remain with you. Obviously, 1989, we moved out to Calcutta. When we came back, we didn't have that many interactions with Mrs. Khurana.
Right.
But whenever I used to meet her, she was always so warm and she used to love me a lot. And many years ago, 2012, she had passed by then, I think. 2012. We were just after the London Olympics, had gone on a small family holiday to Italy, and we were in Florence, and we'd gone up right to the highest point, Michelangelo, I think, to watch it. And there was this Indian couple, Indian
Oh,
origin couple. So we were chatting with them, and we sat in the bus together, went up. So then they started asking, "Where you from?" And sort of Delhi and Bhubaneswar. It's my aunt owns a school there. So I said,
oh,
okay.
that's where the whole
And
connection happened.
so, and where you, what's the name of the school? I said, Ruchika. She said, I'm Mrs. Kurana's nephew and all of that. So it was a great sort of moment out there, far, far away from India, in Florence of all places, and just to meet somebody who was connected to
Yeah.
Mrs. Kurana. Yeah.
And now, all the way from there to being vice president at SG Sports, where you've recently been appointed, you're going to be working very closely with Mahesh Bhupathi, the legendary tennis player himself. Quite a journey. But we want to go back to the time that you were 23 years old because that's the first time you were covering as a sports journalist for Doordarshan, I believe. How did that
Yes.
happen? How did you manage to make that move into Doordarshan? And you were also one of the premier sort of you have that distinction of being the face of, Olympic sports covering journalism, and that's what you've been doing for a very long time. So can you tell us a bit about
Yeah,
that?
I'm not sure the being the face is the right thing. It's your passion. As I said, my journey into sport began with those '88 Olympics, and then sort of every 4 years you would either have the Olympics or the Asian Games. You sit and watch
Sure.
them. Hockey was something which was so close to me, and as you mentioned, the new role at SGSC, and I got a call from my L2 immediately after Paris, and I was in Paris at the games, and for me to seeing the Indian hockey team win the bronze. I was not there in Tokyo. I had just survived a very nasty bout of COVID, so there was no way I was going to Tokyo. So when Mahesh called me and said, "Listen, I'm heading the SGSE and we've bought men's and women's hockey teams. Do you want to come on board and hockey?" And I just jumped because if there's anything that could tear me away from journalism and I've been a journalist for 22 years, it had to be hockey or shooting. Yeah, the two sports which is sort of I have covered all
Right.
my life
Right.
mostly.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to work with Mahesh, the opportunity to get into sort of, you're this side of the screen, you're sort of asking players question, you're observing them, but here you're running the team. You're working in setting up a team. For us, we set up the team from scratch. We got Shijesh on board as director of hockey, getting Graham Reed on board, Dave Smolinar, sort of utilizing your sort of contacts in the hockey arena, trying to understand from people, is this a good pick? Is this not a good pick? What we need? It's a learning process, but I'm absolutely loving it. You also asked how did the journey start?
Correct.
So, like every student growing up in India with a CBSE education, you want to be either a doctor or an engineer.
And yeah.
Uh, my parents, I think, had high hopes of that, but clearly after class 10, that was still not a problem. When I went to 12th, I didn't want, I think, did a mistake by taking science. I never understood calculus. And
Sure.
the problem is that 60 to 70% marks back then, if you didn't understand calculus, you were in trouble. So I completely was a misfit in science. I shouldn't have taken it. Didn't for the first time in my life, sort of, I had very bad marks. And I have been no shame in saying it. I got 53% in class 12, and I was always someone who did well in school. And most of it was mostly because I used to do quizzing. I was very good in quizzing and sort of had this debating and all of that. Extracurricular was more than the actual marks. Come
I
to
see.
think of it, all these years later, it's those skills which have helped me in my career, the debating skills, the quizzing
Sure.
skills. So I used to host quizzes as well. So I just think that in life, uh, I realized that don't allow anyone to tell you what you want to do. Do
Right.
what you want to do. So immediately I course corrected after 12th. I know it wasn't the happiest of times at home, but I wanted to read English. I was always very good at English in school, so I took up English literature.
Sure.
And when you do English literature at that point of time, I mean, you've clearly said no to an MBA, so that's the third option gone. I always wanted to sort of be a TV journalist because this is the 90s, right?
Yeah.
96, 97. You're watching TV, satellite TV coming in. NDTV was not around then. I think they were called Star News. Rajdeep Sardesai. I mean, that he was the icon. You
You
wanted to be
worked with
Rajdeep.
him. You also worked with him at
I'll
CNN-IBN.
come there. I'll come there. Yeah, he
Okay.
wanted to be like Rajdeep, right? And so, what's the next step? They sort of after you finish your college, you apply for all these degrees here and there. Got through to Indian Institute of Mass Communication. Also got through to the Asian College of Journalism, and I was back to back. I think those interviews. I came to Delhi, then I went. And back in the day, you weren't allowed flights, right? So you took the train. You took the train from Delhi to Chennai. Did both. Came back, got admission in both. Decided to come to Delhi because that was where the action was back then.
Sure.
And that's how it started. My first job was obviously after leaving IMC. I got a job. I interned at ZE and then worked in Star News for just about 5, 6 months. I realized that at that point, Star had just started. They'd broken away from NDTV and Star had launched. NDTV had gone 24/7 and NDTV India. But I realized that my Hindi wasn't the greatest. I'm from Odisha, so the Hindi wasn't the greatest. I again course corrected very fast. And because I was from IMC and had finished inside the top 10, there was a scheme out then that, top 10 from IMC will get picked for DD News back then, which was undergoing a bit of a change. Elections were coming up. Atalji was the prime minister. Deepak Chaurasia was coming on board to sort of turn DD around. I joined DD. I worked there for 2 years. I still had this love for NDTV because I think for a lot of us growing up back then, NDTV was the thing. I was probably the only person in sport. I went to DD and said, I will not do this. I will only do sport because sport was a passion. And then from there, looked at NDTV bulletins, learned to write from there. And as luck would have it, a couple of years later, 2005, had a couple of offers from NDTV was there. I had actually had a couple of interviews with NDTV, never cracked it. Then again, it happened. Then Rajdeep quit. Then I went and met Rajdeep, and he offered me a job. There was an offer from Odnob as well when Times Now was starting. But like, if you're in the room with Rajdeep Sardesai, you want to work with him, right? He's your idol. So that's how it happened. 2005, I joined IBN as it was back then. There was no CNN there, and I still remember when Rajdeep telling me, and this is the foresight of the man. We're in 2005. He's saying, yo, I know I had just come back covering the India-Pakistan cricket series. I was traveling all over India for 2 months. And this is where Dhoni made that famous 148 and all of that. Rajdeep in 2005 said, okay, Diggy, you're coming on board. I know you're doing cricket, but there's a Commonwealth Games in 5 years in Delhi. I want you to do Olympic sport. You will continue doing cricket, but that's your main beat. But the vision of the man in 2005 tell me that, start focusing there. So that's why I'm completely in. Rajdeep has sort of been somebody who's been a very special mentor. We've had our fights as always in a newsroom, but he's been very, very sort of a mentor. He's been someone who will guide you, who will push you very hard. But whatever I achieved in my journalism career was all because of that 11 years I spent at CNN-IBN and around 9 years of that with Rajdeep, because he would never allow you to rest on your laurels. You break a story, you do a good story, well done, sabashi. Next day you screw up, you're going to get a shellacking. So I think for me,
Yeah.
that was just the best period for Indian TV journalism, Indian sports journalism. What's happening right now is unfortunate, but that was a good time. Worked with good people. I had a great sports editor in Gaurav Kalra, who I then, after he left, I took over. But again, Gaurav Kalra also I was a bit of a loose cannon, and Gaurav sort of managed to push me in one direction. And there were a couple of other people, Vinay Tiwari, who I speak very fondly of in my book, and Radhakrishnan Nair as well, who's no more. But I think the era when we worked at CNN-IBN, we worked with very good journalists. There were good journalists everywhere. We kept pushing each other up, to do it, and there was no jealousy. We just fed off each other. That's being part of a great TV team.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much for that rundown. It really helps get context to where your journey started, how far you've come along the way. We're going to move to your book, of course, which is called the My Olympic Journey. And I want to talk a bit about that. I'm sure that it chronicles the stories of important sports figures. So I'll let you explain a bit about what that book is.
Actually, I never thought of myself as a writer, because when I finished journalism, journalism school, you got into TV, and TV guys don't write much. You write a 200, 300 word TV script. But a very dear friend of mine, Amit Bose, who co-authored the book with me, he sort of left CNN-IBN and he went abroad to study. He went to London to study, and each time he used to come back from London, he used to push me, we need to write a book, need to write a book, need to write a book. So it's Amit who actually sort of pushed me to write a book, and we decided to work on it together. And the book evolved. Obviously, me with my Olympic background, we thought of sort of what could we do. The Olympics were coming up in Rio. We initially thought it's a coffee table book and blah, blah, blah. But as we went forward, again, Rajdeep, 50, it should be 50, not 20, 25, 50. So then we started looking at Indian athletes from 48 till 2012, was the last Olympics at that point of time. And we thought, we've always looked at sports persons as gold, silver, bronze, fourth, or fail.
Correct.
But what is the journey of the athlete to that point?
Right.
Being an Olympian itself is one of the big, and having been to at least 2 Olympics at that point of time, I realized that being an Olympian is something people always treasure. You can be a World Championship medalist, Asian Games medalist, Commonwealth medalist. You may not be an Olympic medalist, but I'm an Olympian. That matters a lot. So we decided to chart the journey. We sort of looked at who did what, big names of Indian sport. We categorized them. We looked at great performances at the Olympics. We went and spoke to all of them and sort of explained their journey to the Olympics and what they felt at the Olympics. For many at the Olympics, people said they felt like a child in a candy shop, the first Olympics. And Sushil Kumar, my dear friend, who unfortunately is behind bars at the moment, but I don't want to comment on his personal situation. But as an athlete, he was absolutely one of India's greatest. So he told me when I showed him the book, he said, "डिगी भाई इसका मतलब ये है कि ये इंडिया इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया की ओलंपिक हिस्ट्री है तो क्या 48 से 2012 आप कवर करते हो सो
Right.
दैट वाज अ गुड वे ऑफ पुटिंग इट
Sure, sure. No, that's a phenomenal achievement. But I also want to dig up a bit of uh, content, if I may, or stories from that, because there must be such awe-inspiring stories about people and, like you said, their journeys. So, would you be able to give us some examples of such?
well there's so many I'll have to remember it's been a while now but let's look at Leander. I mean, for India, 1996 was the turning point when Leander won a medal after a long time. It was the first individual medal since KD Jadhav in 52. Also, the first medal for India since 1980 in Moscow, the hockey team winning the gold. And Leander won it in singles. But Mahesh Bhupathi told me this great story about Leander. He said the entire world was crazy about Leander, but the guy was as sort of undisciplined as ever because he used to wake up, he used to miss his breakfast, he used to sleep a lot, he used to wake up just in time, sprint all over to catch the bus to go to Stone Mountain where the matches were held. And Mahesh would go running to sort of the dining hall to get some burger or something for him to eat. And that's how the Olympic campaign happened. That was interesting. The Karna Maleshwari, who won a medal 4 years later in Sydney, was telling us that she was her roommates. There were Anjali Bhagwat and others in Sydney in the Olympic Park, and they were chatting. And then her coach used to come up and scream at them, "You guys go to sleep. My athlete has to perform tomorrow." So just these human stories,
Yeah.
Akhil Kumar telling me in Beijing and in Athens as well. Sort of boxers have to cut weight. We saw what happened with Vinesh
Yeah.
in Paris. They used to not drink, just drink coffee, no food, nothing to bring the weight down. He says, "हम लोग भूखे शेर हैं," because people look at us when we are competing at the Olympics, thinking, "Oh, look at them go at each other, trying to kill each other." He says, "We're almost starving." He said, "I said, how do you manage?" And I remember a line he told me. He said, "भूखा शेर सबसे ज़्यादा dangerous होता है."
Right, right.
So that's there. Going back in time, Mr. Randhawa, 1964, he came fifth in an Olympic final in the 100-meter hurdles, telling us that when he used to go to train in Kashmir, which the training camp used to be very ad hoc, he had to take leave, no pay. No pay when you go to national camps before an Olympics. Milkha Saab, spoke to him. Greatest memory for me was, I think, Balbir Saab, 1948, 52, 56, 3 gold medals. It was 88 or something when we went and met him for that book. And just his memories, sort of when he was recounting the uh, the situation in 48. India had just become independent. The British had never played India because
Yeah.
they didn't want to lose to India. In 48, they played for the first time at Wembley. Balbir Saab scored 2 goals. India won the gold. First time the national anthem, the Indian national anthem, was played. So all those sort of memories, they just keep coming back. And what I realized is while writing that book is we should not classify an athlete by a number. Oh, he came seventh at the Olympics, he came 17th. It's the performance which matters. So
True.
when I saw Deepa Karmakar in Rio, she didn't win a medal. She came fourth. I was as guilty. I had no clue who this girl was. I mean, I knew who she was. I never thought she'll come close to a medal. And she came fourth. And that was a story. So I think my Olympic journey laid the platform for me to sort of understand Deepa, where she came from, unexpected. We thought it was unexpected. We didn't know Tripura used to have a vibrant gymnastics culture. So all this sort of adds up together.
Right, right. And when we talk about all these sports persons, we always think about the perseverance, their hard work, their passion, the rigor, etc., that go into it. Can you speak a bit about such transformative journeys of people specifically that that can exemplify the amount of work that they put in? Because you said that they shouldn't be treated as just a statistic. They should not be treated as just a number, but like qualitatively understood, be understood as for how much work that they put in for those 4 years. Would you be able to give us some insight into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Indian sport has always been, initially when I was growing up, was about near misses. You were told the story of Milkha Saab coming fourth, PT Usha coming fourth, and Amara and hockey. Hockey was everything for us. Hockey team wins a medal, as good as gold, or else end of the campaign. I think the turning point happened, as I said, with Leander, then Maleshwari, Anjali Bhagwat, who may not have won an Olympic medal, but in a sport like shooting, she sort of fired up that generation.
Yeah.
Single-handed determination, perseverance, Abhinav Bindra, Colonel Rathore. Uh, Again, not too many believed that we could do anything in shooting. Rathore went out there, won a silver. It was all single-minded determination. I can do this. Sort of Abhinav came very close in Athens. He till today says that he shot better in Athens than in Beijing, but he didn't win a medal. I think the Indian sports person post Leander fired it all up. He broke that shackle that, oh, we can't win at the Olympics. Initially, it was all mostly self funded, it was their own personal dream. And at that point, sport was evolving in India. The support wasn't there from the corporates or from the government. You look at a young kid today compared to what Abhinav and Anjali Bhagwat and all had, it's like not even 1%. And
True.
still they got there. Today, sort of look at these Olympics, the purse strings were opened, whatever you want, you get. That's why I sort of agreed with what Prakash Padukone said, that India's players have to deliver after they've been given everything. And I think that's the change. It's that mindset change. And that's why you remember all of these. The people who won the medals in 96, 2000, 2004, right up till Bindra. I think Bindra's gold changed Indian sport forever.
Yeah, I think
That was the turning point. Yeah.
defying all the odds when you really don't have a lot of support from the government, or in terms of the facilities that traditionally our country would not have had the resources, which is completely
Yeah.
understandable. So now being in a position, like you said, where there's more infrastructure, there's a lot of private organizations getting into the game. So how do you think
There
that?
is, there is, there is. But I think what people tend to forget is 99% of the funding is still from the government.
Right.
I think the government delivery is at times a problem. That's where the last mile is an issue, because obviously to get a sanction, you need paperwork and all of that. That all started to change again when Ajay Markan became the sports minister. London was excellent because that last mile connectivity was there, and whatever gap remained, you then had Mittal Chapin Trust, OGQ, and later obviously JSW have come in, Go Sports have come in, Adani Sports Line have now come in. So a lot of things have happened, a lot of things have evolved. So it's good for Indian sport. There's still a lot to be done, but it's
Yeah.
much better than it was when I started covering sport 2003. It was a mess.
Right, right. And then when you contrast India to say a China, for example, which always is a comparison that, begs to be discussed, because we're such close neighbors, and also the fact that in politics, in military ways, in every context of life now, India wants to be a force to reckon with. So, how do you think that India should be shaping the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the spectrum of sports, and especially Olympics? How do you think that we can perform better, deliver better?
Well, I think China is not the right comparison, because the Chinese model is not what can happen in India. We're a democracy. We can't force kids away from their parents, and they. I think slowly what is happening, and these leagues have helped. Earlier, sport was supposed to be, oh, you play in school, come back. Arey, kitna kheloge, go and study. You have to be, as I said, engineer, doctor, MBA. I think what's happening now is with the IPL, cricket was always supposed to be, oh, Tendulkar, you're going to get so much money. I think again, the IPL opened up cricket, made it more sort of democratized cricket. You're from a village or from a small town, if you have some skill, you'll still get picked for 30, 40 lakhs at the bare minimum. Uh, you look at now all the other leagues, hockey. I'm working in hockey. There is still a young kid who's going to get. Say, it's not great. It's still 2 lakhs. It's over and above what he's already getting. You look at there's a Kho league, there's a Pro Panja league, there's Kabaddi. Now great story Kabaddi 2006. Doha Asian Games, India-Pakistan final, India won the gold. I was interviewing the captain. He said, "Sir, एक चीज बताओ, 4 साल में एक बार लगता है कि हम इंडिया के लिए खेलते हैं." Because for them, that's the Olympic Games.
Right, right.
So I think that's changing. India still has a long way to go. I think there's a lot more emphasis now from the government that, sport is the force multiplier. But because we started off so late, we are still way, way behind. A country like India should be winning at least 40 medals at the Olympics.
Yeah.
At
I didn't
least.
mean to
But we are
necessarily.
not there. We are not
Correct.
nowhere there. I
I-
mean, I was in Paris, so I know. Again, look at Paris. You won, say, 6 medals, and we lost one in Vinesh, and so many people came close. But it's still not a movement, right? How many parents still send their kids to play sport? A, how many schools do you have a vibrant sports culture in school? That's your basic starting. How many schools have playgrounds in India? It won't happen, Vasant, till it becomes a movement. The government can try what it wants. It's a mindset change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I think that would probably require a separate discussion altogether because there's so
Yeah.
much we can explore within the gaps in infrastructure development, despite all the potential and talent that we have in government's good intentions. So we're going to move on to your own journey with so many Olympic destinations that you've been to. Which one's your favorite and why?
I've been to 4 actually, but my it has to be Beijing, my first Olympics. Your first Olympics, right? Listen, your entire life you sort of looked at the Olympics, followed it on TV, sort of read about it and everything, and then you get to your first Olympics. Beijing was always special, and Abhinav Bindra made it extra special. When I
Right.
was there, my first Olympics saw the gold, which India had never won. Individual gold had never won. So absolutely no hesitation over there. Seeing that in terms of coverage, I think I'll rate Paris very highly
Sure.
because, and I'll tell you why. Because Beijing, I was still understanding the business and getting to understand. I said I was a child in a candy shop. By the time I got to London, I was completely switched on. I knew what was happening. I knew almost every athlete who went to those games. Similar with Rio, because 6 months before Rio, I was traveling and staying in national camps and shooting documentaries with India's Olympic team. Some of the best work I've done. And then when I went to Paris, obviously I had not gone to Tokyo because I almost died during COVID. So when I went to Paris, I was not prepared. I just went last minute. I had had absolutely no preparation. When you become a sports editor from a normal reporter, there's other responsibilities as well. And despite that, to be able to do the work that I did, sort of still find my contacts, still break the stories that I did. For me, work-wise, Paris was very satisfactory because post 2017, when I moved to Vion, and 2018, where I had done the Asian Games, I had not gone out after that.
Right.
So it was a 6-year gap, but
Yeah.
to still manage to pull it off, for me personally, that was great. And it also allowed me to sort of close the loop as a professional journalist. So many people ask, why did he leave and get into a corporate kind of situation? I don't look at it as corporate. I'm working in a sports team. I'm running a couple of sports teams, and there are other things which are very exciting out there. But for me, Paris allowed me the chance to close the loop because I was not there in Tokyo. And had I taken this up then, I would have had that regret. So
Okay.
Paris was very satisfactory for me from a professional point of view as well. And I saw a hockey medal. Then for me, that was the cue to go.
Right, right. Your passion for the sports obviously is very palpable, completely almost tangible. So I'm going to ask you then, what is it about being at an Olympic event that sort of heightens that excitement, that whole energy about the place that we cannot experience from watching it on screen?
I think the Olympics, you have to be there to understand it. You see, we all follow Wimbledon, we all follow the athletics. Somewhere Neeraj Chopra is competing, but to have the best in the world, to be in that area, in a small area,
Yeah.
for a period of say 2 weeks, and everywhere you turn, you see a champion. Like in Paris, I remember when I was there, I one of the early days I wanted to talk to Rohan Bopanna. It was going to be last Olympics. I go to Roland Garros. I'm sitting there waiting for Rohan. Naomi Osaka walks by. Tsitsipas walks by. I'm standing outside for a live outside the gates of of the French. My camera is set. I'm about to go live. A car stops behind me. I turn, asking the driver to move. The door opens. Novak Djokovic walks out.
Oh man.
So it's I can't explain what the Olympics, especially if you are a sports fan. Because everywhere you go to the games village to meet someone, you stand there, somebody or the other is coming out, and you've seen the person on TV. So I think that's what is the beauty about the Olympics, that
Yeah.
so much greatness at one place for a 17-day period.
Yeah.
I think you won't get that. And also, unlike the Asian Games or the Commonwealth, where lots of people go, at the Olympics, only the best go. You have to qualify to be at the Olympics.
Right, right. Any favorite fan moments? I've heard a couple of your interviews where you talked about meeting Djokovic, of course, calling out to Rafael
Hmm.
Nadal, him turning around, wondering who it is, and then having that brief conversation.
Yeah.
Moments like that.
Oh, plenty of them. I think towards the end, after a point, that was early days. Like those were all Beijing. Federer, obviously, when he'd beaten Leander and Mahesh, Federer was very unapproachable. But he'd just beaten Leander and Mahesh, and he had lost to them in Athens in the quarters. And when he came off, he was smiling. So I sort of had the thing to go up and ask him, "Can I have a photo with you?" And he said yes. So many years later, when I interviewed him at the IPTL, I actually got him to sign that photo. It's somewhere there in the drawing room.
Right,
So
right.
there are plenty of fan moments. Just so many people you meet, so many people you've sort of looked up to as a kid, and then you sort of meeting them. Remember doing Nadia Comaneci's interview in London for the first time, and they're not realizing that many years later she would write the forward for the book on Deepa Karmakar. So lots of things. I I don't know. There's just so many of them.
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
can't recollect.
Yeah,
I can't pick one actually. I can't pick one.
it
But
must
if
be.
you ask me, what is your favorite Olympic moment? Without a doubt, watching Bindra win the gold, watching that national anthem, hearing the national anthem play, and seeing the national flag go up in Beijing, best moment ever, on a sporting pitch. And second after that has to be the hockey, just because of my passion for hockey, my love for hockey. To see
Yeah.
that medal, I still remember writing on this very iPad that I'm doing this. I said, my fingers shake as I type this. I can't believe this. I have seen India win a hockey medal at the Olympics.
Sure. I think that after having gone through so many exhilarating moments of meeting and being at these events, meeting people, it would be very hard for you to be able to sort of wrap your head around it and
Yeah.
capture it all in such a short interview slash podcast. But maybe we'll get another opportunity to explore more of that another time. But I really wish you the very best of luck on your onward journey with SG Sports. But thank you so much for taking time out for this podcast. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for this as well. And listen, one of my mentors, G. Rajaraman, once told me in 2003, he said, you're always a student of sport. And I remain a student of sport. For me, sport is everything. Sport teaches you humility. You can be the best in the world and you can lose in the first round. I think Djokovic came into Rio right up there. And I think lost in the first round or second round to Carreno Busta or something. I think if I don't, or Del Potro, I'm not sure. It's been a while. But
Yeah.
that's what the Olympics are. You can you can lose in the first round at the Olympics. So sport teaches you humility, and that's one life lesson which I always take on board. Uh, Wake up in the morning, go to work or whatever you're doing, give it your best. If you don't win, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's a new day next day. You start again.
That's very well said. Thanks again. Thank you so much, Digvijay Singh Deo.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.